Hi, everyone. Dr. Liz here. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast. I'm glad you're here, glad you're listening and learning, and hopefully it will help you with your journey along the way. I am a psychotherapist with a specialty in anxiety, insomnia, and deeper emotional healing. Hypnosis is one of the tools in my toolbox that I use to help people feel better and to help people be better. I do work all over the world. Please feel free to reach out and contact me if you would like some help. I've been an entrepreneur for most of my adult life, built an award-winning company, sold it, and then focused mainly on my private practice. That gives you a unique perspective, especially my ability to work with people in business at all kinds of levels. Before I go, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go and subscribe to the newsletter. And you'll get free hypnosis downloads that you can listen to immediately. Another way is to buy one of the downloads that I have for sale. I only have a couple up there, but they're good ones. They've stood the test of time. Or if you'd like to join my Patreon, that's an additional way to support the podcast. I made the decision to not run ads during my podcast because I really do see it as an act of service. I completely respect people who do have ads on their podcast, but it's just not my path. But a great way to show your own support for it is to join the Patreon. So if you're interested, pop on over there and check it out. All right, everyone, enjoy the episode, and I hope to see you back here soon. Hey everyone, Dr. Liz here. This is a slightly longer intro than normal, but stick with me here. I know you like to get right to the interviews. I do too. I sometimes skip the intros altogether when I'm listening to a podcast. But if you're still listening, I am having some problems with enunciation. I had some dental work done, and it looks like they've damaged the nerve that helps control my tongue. And so it feels like my tongue is not working a lot of the time. And often I have to slow down my speech. The S's are really hard, which you will hear. And sometimes they don't work at all. So you may hear this in the interview where I may repeat a word. There you go. That's exactly what it's like. Or a phrase, or it sounds like my enunciation is very soft. I fully believe that nerve can heal and regenerate, and I'm doing lots of self-hypnosis for it. When I'm meditating also, just giving myself some really positive statements around the myelin sheath is regenerating and is nice and plump, and that nerve is nice and plump, and my tongue works easily and perfectly to create clear and wonderful speech. Things like that, and variations on it. I have a hypnosis mentor who created a bypass in his heart, a natural one, with self-hypnosis. So all kinds of things are possible. He later had heart surgery, and the cardiologist said, "Oh, look at this. You've created some kind of bypass. Like if you hadn't done that, then you would have had to have the surgery much earlier, or you would have had some pretty severe consequences." And so it was confirmed by the cardiologist that he had done this. And I was like, wow, Marty, his name is Martin Nathan, martinnathan.com, if you want to work with him. I was like, wow, Marty, that's incredible. But also, it just reaffirms my belief in what hypnosis can do. That's my very long intro. It's going to continue now. This interview is with Micah Salaberrios, who has a wonderful voice. I have been a fan of his podcast for many, many years, as is my daughter, and you'll hear that at the beginning of the interview. He is an expert on nonviolent communication. So he's going to share what that is with us, review the steps. We're going to talk about some scenarios it can apply to, some problems that people run into with it. But at its essence, it is a method to de-escalate conflict, to turn conflict into connection. We all have conflict in our life that comes up with various people in our life. Some people find that very easy to navigate, and other people need a little help, myself included. All right, I hope you're healthy and safe, people. And let's jump into this wonderful interview with Micah. Hi, Micah. Welcome to the Hypnotize Me podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, absolutely. I was so excited about this interview. I was telling my husband at breakfast, oh, I can't wait for 10 o'clock and I get to interview Micah. And I was giving him some of the background of how much you've influenced my daughter and her friends, and what a
Wow.
pleasure that's actually been to know they're going to go forward with some better skills around communication in their life.
Yeah, it was actually great timing. I think I might have mentioned the email, but I'm writing a book, another book. I have one book
Oh,
out,
you
but I'm writing
are.
another book. And I have this one, I was with an editor with Shambhala Publishing. And the editor was like, she was like, who's your aiming your book for? And I'm like, everybody. But I was thinking, 30 to 50-year-old people going through divorces or in marriages. She's like, I think you should aim younger. I think it's like the younger generation that needs to
Yeah.
hear this. And then like 3 days later, I got that message from you. And I was like, wow, that's pretty auspicious.
Awesome. That is. Yeah. And I have your book. I consider it like clip notes
hmm
to Marshall Rosenberg's.
Exactly. That's what I meant it for.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good. Because that's
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, this is very easy to pick up, and they're just good reminders about the steps. And,
Yeah.
it's like a briefer, like a little cliff notes going through it.
Yeah, it's more
So
concise, just like right to the point, and maybe like a little updated on some kind of a modern era.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Because I know his work was developed in the 60s and 70s. And then I
hmm
think the original book was published 1999. So it's,
Oh, wow. That's right. Because
yeah,
he did like 20, 30 years without that book.
yeah,
And that book is amazing.
it is. It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
he used to do workshops, and I think uh, there weren't a whole lot of online workshops at that time. So it was probably in person. Most of his
Yeah.
stuff was in person. But then he published that book. And so I think it has changed the world,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
I
But
think
tell
so.
me about your background, because I know very little about you other than the podcast. So I know through some of the stories that you've done some, I think it's film editing
hmm
or producing, not quite sure. So tell
Yeah.
the listeners about your background and how you came to NVC, how you discovered it.
Yeah. I've always been very creative, playing music. That's when I started in like my 20s. I was playing music, but not very successfally.
Okay.
But then I had a raw food business that was,
Oh,
doing paying the bills. And
uh-huh.
then I got into filmmaking, and I just got like just such a passion for it
Mm,
in my 30s. And then I started doing that. And through that, I ended up being in San Francisco and
okay.
working on a documentary.
Mm,
And that's when I discovered NVC. But I also like I knew I needed NVC because I grew up in a household that was just there was love there. It wasn't like this crazy, but it was definitely verbally abusive
ah,
from day one. Just
really?
every verbal trick was used all the time. And
Mm,
that's what's normal. It doesn't feel good, it feels horrible, but
yeah.
like you still do it, even though I know like I don't think I would ever do it to the degree that was done to me, but
Uh-huh.
even before NBC, but I was still doing it on the subtle ways, the guilt trips, the implying
Okay.
that like bad and wrong to try to get my way, like this all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I was on this documentary, after about like 6 months, we were working side by side every day, for like 40 hours a week. And then it was great for a while, but after like
Mm-hmm.
6 months, we hadn't been like clearing the air ever. So little things
Yeah.
just building up, building up, building up. And then there's just like a subtle aggravation. And then everything blew up one day. And then I was like thinking I'm leaving the project. And then she had been taking an NVC course for like
Ah,
3 weeks, like one of those, in San Francisco is, I think, where it started, or it's definitely a lot of NBC there. It's where the center is.
yes, in California.
So
Yeah.
she was paying a couple $1,000s for this course, and then all of a sudden she was like,
Mhm.
"Are you feeling upset because you would like more appreciation for all the passion you bring to the project?" And it was like exactly how I felt.
Wow. Wow.
And it was just such a foreign, like when you're in, it was already heated, and she decided to go stop being heated and then
Uh-huh.
switched into that. And it just pierced right in there. And actually tears came to my eyes because I was passionate about the project. And
Yeah.
and then everything got smoothed over and we quickly worked it out and everything was good. And then later she was like, "Oh, I did NVC on you." And I was like,
Ah,
"What's NVC?" And I remember I'd heard about it a few years before, and maybe like guy was teaching us a couple of things. I thought that's really interesting, but then I never. But this time I
pursued
was
it.
like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh! I went and bought the book, and I started reading that book maybe like 6 times in a row. And then I was driving,
Yeah. It's a good book. Yeah.
and then I
Got
was
it.
driving to and back from Oakland to San Francisco every day for this project. And so I was audio booking and learning because I
Okay.
I just recognized I needed it so bad. My whole family needed it. This was the antidote for the things that we did to each other all the time. But we all love each other, but we would still do this all the time. We didn't know how to
Yes.
not.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I don't know when I discovered, probably sometime in graduate school, I ran across it, or sometime during my couples, training and studies and stuff, how to work with couples, because it's often used in marital therapy
Mm,
for couples. But I was thinking, I need a refresher. And so I just Googled it up on the podcast app and found your podcast, and then started listening to it in the car. And my daughter, this was a couple of years ago, but she loved it. Oh my gosh. And she would have me pause. And her reaction, though, I remember her initial reaction was, "My dad needs this." We're not, that's her, we're divorced.
mm,
So she's like, "My dad and his girlfriend, who was living with him at the time, they need this." And so we
mm,
had a conversation about consent too.
mm,
Like, like you need to ask them if they're willing to listen to some
mm,
of this.
mhm,
She
mhm.
was like, "I could just put it on." I was like, "Yeah, you could do that too. You could just put it on and ask them to put it on in the car or something like that." I said, "But
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah." But I think that's a common reaction of like, "Oh my God, my whole family needs this."
Yeah.
Right. Or my partner needs this, or, my sister needs this, whatever it is. I think they're not always open to it. Right.
Yes, quite
Yeah.
often. Then because nobody thinks they speak violently.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I find too that in your book, actually, you talk about some of the differences and struggles with having to like calm yourself down. I
yeah,
really appreciated that part of your book, and also in the podcast as well. Of like,
yeah.
okay, you can go back into those old patterns.
Oh my gosh,
It,
they're there. They're so fully ingrained. Like it's still a struggle for me. It's not like I've mastered it. I'm not a master. I've just understand the concepts. For some reason, I just understand the concepts really like deeply. But
Mhm.
in the moment, it's challenging. Although I did it the other day with me and my girlfriend. We were having a struggle, and it was just I wasn't like at this stage, I'm not always doing like, okay, step one, step two, step three, but I'm
Yeah.
just keeping that energy of like, okay, do not do anything that says she's bad or wrong. That's like the main thing. Don't say
Yeah.
anything that implies, and if I do apologize, like, wait, my bad. I didn't mean to say that. Let me rephrase that.
Ah.
And just doing emergency empathy. Just like because it was one of those conversations that kind of were going on and for a while. You're like, I'm not sure if we're getting anywhere, but I just
Mhm.
kept coming back to, okay, well, let me just try to figure out how she feels and why. And then
Mm.
let me state how I feel and why without, saying you're bad or wrong. And eventually worked it out. And it was great. And we never got to too heated. When before in my life, I would have said something like, "You're bad and wrong. This is all your fault." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
been implying that at various rings. And I probably
Yes.
did a little bit, but it wasn't too crazy. And I would kind of like reel it in if I started feeling myself. Yeah,
Yeah. So can you review the steps for us? Just a brief steps. And
absolutely.
just for the listeners, he goes way into these steps in the podcast, way
Yeah.
more in depth.
Yeah. So step one. So first thing is we do NVC when there's something wrong. We know something's bothering us, or maybe
Hmm.
we think that there's something bothering somebody else, or maybe there's something we just want to bring up that maybe is very sensitive. So we bring attention to this catalyst using observable facts. So
Hmm.
no judgments, no opinions, no evaluations, diagnostics, nothing like that. Just observable facts. Then step two is you bring up how you feel in this moment It's how you feel without any judgments. It's got to be a real feeling because there's fake feelings out there. A real
Uh-huh.
feeling is like usually one word, and you feel it, and you could feel it alone on a desert island, and it's like sad, lonely, scared, um,
Hmm.
irritable, impatient,
Yeah.
stressed. But a fake feeling is something that implies someone is doing something to you, and it's really just a judgment, like disrespected. That implies someone's bad and
Mm-hmm.
wrong for disrespecting you. You're a victim. They should
Mm-hmm.
change. You don't need to change. Like all that is implied with disrespected. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work, disrespected, abused, neglected. All these things are not feelings, they're judgments. So
Got
so
it.
yeah, each step has like these like challenges and these easy to fall into traps.
Yes.
So step one, bring up the whatever's bothering with observable facts. Step two, express how you feel authentically too. The more authentic you are, the more vulnerable you are, the more
Mm-hmm.
the other person will believe you and feel connected to you and trust you. And then it makes everything much easier. And
Mm-hmm.
then the third step is to express why you feel the way you do,
Mm-hmm.
which is always based on your own beliefs, values, what's important to you. And it's never like, I feel this way because of you, because ultimately we're responsible for how we feel because we're the ones who get to interpret what happens. So,
Yes.
the example I always use is if someone like stands you up for a date, like you have a date
Mm-hmm.
and they don't show or they cancel last second. Now you might get sad, and it could on the outside look like yes, you're sad because of what they did. But the reality is, if you didn't want to go on that date and they
Uh-huh.
canceled, you'd be like, winning. You know what
That's true.
I mean? So what changed? Your perceptions changed. You're the one.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on you. It always is like that. It's irrelevant of the circumstances. How you feel is always dependent on how you are interpreting things. So you are responsible for it. Doesn't mean that it's okay to abuse people and be crazy, but it just means like ultimately you are responsible. So you don't blame them. So that's why you speak in that way. You say, I feel this happened. I feel this way because I have this value, or this is important to me, or I would really like. And then the last part is the request,
Mm-hmm.
specific request, because vague requests, that's another trap. Could you be a little more nice to your sister, or could you clean up a little bit more about around the house, or could you be a little bit more
Yeah.
respectful? Like, what is a little bit more? Like 1% more, 2% more?
Yeah.
What does that look like? How long do I got? All these questions are not answered, and so if we agree to something like that, we don't even know what we're agreeing to. But in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, it might feel like, okay, we accomplished something. You can move on, but you didn't really accomplish anything. It needs to be specific. Like,
Yeah.
could you not cuss inside the house? Or could
Mm-hmm.
you clean up your room every Monday when you get home from school? Specific things. But there's three types of
Yes.
requests too. So, because language is nuanced,
It
communications are
is.
nuanced. In the real world, when you have an issue, it's usually different, it's usually unique. And the three requests there's the action-based one, where you take out the trash in the next 10
Mm-hmm.
minutes, right? Those are probably the easiest and clearest. But then there's a lot of times you don't need a solution. All you really need to do is bring attention to the issue. And that's what I call the connection-based request. So you're just
Okay.
saying, like, you said this comment last night. I'm feeling I'm feeling sad because um the why, because I don't really understand what you meant and I want to. Or I'm feeling sad and I don't even know why. But basically, I just want to let you know that I'm feeling sad from
Mm-hmm.
it. And then because you don't know the solution, but you just want to share what happened. Sometimes that's all it needs. Just awareness. Like awareness is the shining of the light. So the
Yeah.
connection-based requests are sometimes like, does that make like you go through the other steps and then go, does that make sense to you? Or do you understand where I'm coming from? Or I just wanted to let you
Mm-hmm.
know that. And that
Yeah.
is very helpful a lot of times. And that's helpful too, because a lot of times and when you're doing NVC, it's not just one statement. Usually that's a
Mm-hmm.
good opening statement. That just brings attention to the situation, and now the conversation can start. And maybe after a bit of back and forth, there's an action-based request later. But sometimes you don't want to start
Yes.
off with this.
Okay.
Here's the problem. I would need you to never do that again. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, I see the connection-based request, and again, I'm not an expert in NVC. I would consider you an expert in NVC, but I would see it as, would you be willing to talk about this with me?
Yeah, that's a great one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Perfect. I'll use that one. And then the last one is
Okay.
clarity. Clarity, because sometimes you're just like, okay, this thing happened, and I'm not going to just jump to the conclusion that you're a terrible person and you're trying to ruin everything. Can you just tell me, this is what we do though, right? We go
We
leap
do.
to the
We totally
worst
do.
possible
Yes.
interpretation. So you say, can you help me understand, like just clarity, just ask for clarity. Why did this happen? Can you help me understand? Can you explain this to me? Yeah.
Hmm.
And then no matter how good your NVC is,
Uh-huh.
people can interpret it however they want. And they're not
Yes.
always going to interpret it correctly. And
Hmm.
they can get offended. And as soon as someone is triggered, then NVC
Hmm.
does not work. It could be perfect NVC and then like just beautiful, just poetry.
Uh-huh.
But there's like, why are you trying to control me all the time? And you're just like, I'm going to say the sentence again. No, 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 no. Don't repeat yourself ever.
I love that you talk about this because I remember giving the actual handout to my husband, the second husband. We like to call him the newish husband because we've been married about 5 years now. But probably I was searching up NVC at the time to like work out some communication stuff with him. And I give him the handout that's the little, this is a process I'd like to follow. And he's like, I really hate handouts. He literally threw it to the side. Like, I'm not gonna do this. And it's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So tell us, like, what do we do then
Yes.
when
So
someone's
then
triggered?
you do, yeah, as soon as someone's triggered, really and if you're triggered too, you do emergency empathy. And it's
Okay.
so powerful. It's so amazing. But it is challenging to do when you need to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. But what you do is you guess how they feel and why.
Okay.
Because it's just like this magical combo. It's not just guess how they feel. Are you upset? That doesn't work. And we do that, and that's better than insulting them. But you need
Yes.
when you do, are you like for your husband when he throws it away? You could say, are you feeling concerned that this is more of a trick than an actual useful thing, or are you feeling concerned that this is a waste of time?
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling upset because you've had bad experiences with NVC before? Are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling suspicious because you think that maybe I'm trying to manipulate you by doing this into doing something you don't want to do, right? And you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be correct, but when you say, "Are you feeling this thing?" It has to be a real feeling. It has to be specific, or the
Okay.
more specific, the better. It will prompt a response from them. It's so
Yes.
hard not to respond to a properly done emergency empathy. When
Hmm.
if you just repeated yourself, they're going to get more irritated. If you say anything
Yes.
negative, if they're already triggered and you say anything negative, they're going to probably amplify like 3 times
Yes.
and then it's a fight.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say emergency empathy, it's probably going to go down in intensity a little bit. And it might like sometimes it just cracks it out. If you actually get it right in the first one, you don't got to get it right. You just have to be genuine and the key thing is no implication of, wrongdoing. You can be like, are you upset because you don't know how to talk to people and you don't like working things out? It's like, no, that doesn't work.
It's like when I was doing a lot of work with couples, I still give this example. I say an I statement is not, I feel like you're an asshole. That's not an I statement. Okay. It's the same kind of thing, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah,
And
it
that's
can
another
have a
trap. The
lot
whole
of,
I feel like or I feel as if, those are all judgments. Like when you're saying that,
yes.
those are not feelings, those are all judgments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear it needs that because on it. Like, are you feeling triggered because you're feeling like you can't do this process or you're feeling controlled? A you would be, you can't do this process. I think that might, I don't know. That's
Yeah, and
on the
I like
border there, right?
the trick is, Brett, because
Like,
words you do it. It's so amazing that Marshall's name is Marshall because this is really the martial arts of words
yes,
because it is very nuanced. Even right then, when
it
you say,
is.
"Are you feeling triggered?" and then you slipped into the because you're feeling this way, which is fine, but right, what it's really thinking. So, are you feeling triggered because you think that you can't get this, or
Yeah.
that's the more accurate way because you're not feeling like you can't get it, but that's how we all speak. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but
Yes.
like if you say thinking, because that's more true. It's like, oh yeah, I'm thinking, and that's why we use that whole feel thing. I feel like a lot of times people say, I feel as if you're not listening to me, right?
Hmm.
Which is a judgment. But why do we speak like that? Because if we say, I don't think you're listening to me, which is more honest and truthful,
Yeah.
it's less ground to stand on. It's like it's basically saying I have an opinion, and my opinion is actually not that valuable. But if I say I feel, then it's like this is a message from a higher source. So you
Yeah.
should just know that it's true.
It's hard to argue with someone saying I
Yes,
feel.
I
Like
feel
you can't tell me
God.
because then it
Yes.
goes into you can't tell me how I feel or not.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the more honest way
right.
is just I don't think you listen to me. I don't think you care about this. I think, or I suspect.
Mhm.
And that's how that's just the more it takes like a little practice and time, but yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I suspect. I
Hmm.
like that. I suspect that you're not listening to me. I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes if you ask the direct, are you listening to me? Then depending on what's going on, you may get a real reaction to that.
Yeah, yeah. If
Of,
they're
yeah, of course I
triggered, that's
am.
probably yeah, it's probably if they're already triggered, you listen to me, yeah, I'm listening to you. What do you know? But if you
Yeah,
say, but
right.
if you do the two part, it'll probably go down, you know.
Okay, so give us the two part again. Like let's say you don't feel like your partner's listening to you and some
Okay.
triggering, you're already at a
So
certain
I'll say,
level
yeah,
that's
are
a
you
little escalated or
yeah.
heated.
So you could say like, are you upset about something that I just said? Not a great one,
Ah,
but
okay.
it's but it'll take it down a little bit. You know what I mean? It's better than almost anything else you could say. Like, why are you so upset? That ain't gonna work. You seem upset.
Yeah.
You also it's got to be a question. You don't want to tell them, and that's just subtle, right? Like this is an art. There's no like 100%, and you can do it wrong and it still works. But when you're practicing and thinking about it, it's just all about honing it in. So you don't want to say you seem upset. No one wants to be told how
Well,
they seem. It's
oh yeah, for
slightly annoying.
sure.
There's,
Yes.
allow them to be the expert. When you say, "Are you upset because of this?" You're allowing them to be the expert.
I like that too because it sidesteps whether they're listening or not. Are you upset about something I just said? And
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they
You
can
wouldn't even say, "Are you?" Yeah, you
say,
wouldn't even say the "Are you listening?" Because
yeah,
yeah,
they can say, well, I really wasn't listening. Can you say it again? Because I was thinking about something else you said that
yeah,
upset me.
yeah.
You know,
And
like
and if they're not listening but it's not triggered yet, then you can do NVC, right? Because you only need to do emergency empathy when they're
uh-huh.
triggered, because NVC is used for finding like drawing a boundary.
Okay.
Generally, because there's an issue, let's find the solution. So if they weren't listening, you could say, hey, for the past like 5 minutes you've looked at your phone
Mm-hmm.
many times and you're staring the other way. You're
Mm-hmm.
staring the other way.
Facts. Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling frustrated because
Mm-hmm.
I really want to talk to you about this. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand where I'm coming from? Right? That was all the
Uh,
4 steps, and that would be a connection based. They'd be like, oh yeah, 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 okay, my bad. Speaking.
yeah. Okay, got it. Got it. So yes, it starts with that observable facts
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then moves
observable
on
facts.
to
And then
feelings.
and then observable facts, like, so every step is nuanced. So the observable fact, it doesn't always have, you want to sound natural. You don't want to sound like you're doing NVC when you're doing NVC, because your partner's going to know that you're doing NVC. And if it's
I'm running this through my head and I'm like, okay, how do you sound natural?
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I don't use yeah, okay. So for observable facts, sometimes um like you can say, okay, so like clear NVC would be like, I'm noticing that the trash is filled to the brim. And, it's like
Uh-huh.
it's overflowing. It's like, do you ever say I'm noticing?
No.
No, me either. So all of a sudden you're using this different vernacular. It's like a high alert. You can
Yeah.
say, but you can say, hey, babe, I can see that the trash is overflowing. I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
irritated
Mm-hmm.
because clean kitchen makes I'm just so it's important to me. I just can't. I don't feel relaxed when the kitchen is clean. And you did say that you were gonna empty the trash. Could you empty the trash in the next 10 minutes? That was like clear NVC
Yeah.
every step, but it didn't really sound. Didn't reek of NVC. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, you're doing some
Yes.
weird. Like two NVC would be, I'm noticing that the trash is overheated, and I'm feeling slightly concerned. Um, because I have a need for a clean kitchen, and I'm just
Uh-huh.
wondering if you would be willing to take out the trash in the next few minutes. Not that it's terrible, not that it wouldn't work, but it's just so
No,
clear
yeah.
that you're not being just natural you and just speaking.
Yes. And with me and my daughter, we sort of laugh about when we are doing NVC because we recognize it. And
Yeah, yeah,
so we find it humorous, which then just facilitates
yes,
actually the connection between us and what we're asking for. So
yeah,
if I'm saying something like I remember the first we had listened to the podcast some and she would take her clothes off the hanger but leave the hanger in between the clothes, which it made it harder for me to hang the clothes later. because then I
Okay.
have to search around for the hangers.
Gotcha.
So, so I said, I used the NVC. I don't remember the first statements I said. I said, would you be willing to put the hanger at the end with the other empty hangers when you take, an item off of it? And I think she said, are you using MVC? And I said, yes. And she's like, yes, I'd be willing to. And we both sort of laughed. So,
Isn't that awesome though? Because that could little
yes,
things like that could turn into these big arguments that just build disconnection. And then when you just actually are able to express yourself succinctly and they say yes, it's just like it just feels like victory, It's just like
it does. It does. And then you can do shorthand later because she doesn't always remember. And so later I would say, like, hey, hangers in. And she says, oh, yes, yes.
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually thanking me for the reminder instead of being like, oh my God, my mom is nagging me.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I love NBC.
Yeah. Yeah. It can really accomplish some things. What happens when someone just says, no, they're not willing?
Oh, well, then you come up with another. So okay, so say, are you willing to take out the trash in the next 10 minutes? They're like, no, I'm not going to. Like you have several things. Okay, you ask for clarity. Why would you
Uh-huh.
not be willing to do that? And then you go
Uh-huh.
deeper. Why wouldn't someone want to do that? Is it not, that would be the first thing. If they say no, you find out why. But if you say, if it's another situation, you say, okay, how about this possible solution? And they're like, no, it doesn't work. And you go, okay, well, how about this possible solution? Doesn't work. How about, I would
Mhm.
say like you try for two or three. How about this
Okay.
possible solution? And then they're like, no, no, no. Say, okay, do you have a possible solution? And then they're probably gonna have some ideas. And if they have no
Mhm.
ideas, and then you're like, okay, well, there's this other issue of like, why you can't be that unwilling to work out this situation. Do you not care about my needs at all? Am I completely, you know what I mean? Like it would lead into
Yeah.
deeper things eventually. Most
Yes.
likely, if they refuse three of yours, they'll probably have some kind of idea about what might work. And you just go back and forth and
Okay.
look for the win-win.
Okay. So if you're not reaching some kind of resolution there, because it's clear I don't know if it's clear in the original book, because I haven't read it in a while, but I read yours recently, reread it, and it's clear that your goal is not compromise.
Mhm.
Your goal is to get both people's needs met.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if it's not coming to that, then that's a conversation. I guess you can decide, would you be willing to go away, brainstorm this, see if we can get both of our needs met?
Yeah. And the trick is generally like so we're taught that compromise is a good thing, but a compromise is not necessary. But what
Uh-huh.
is necessary to not compromise is to truly understand what the core needs are. And a lot of times we don't even know.
Okay.
We know that we're upset. And
Uh-huh.
we might know we might know surface level. I'm upset because the toothpaste is always out. But
Uh-huh.
maybe the deeper thing is like sticking to your word.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the deeper thing is just trust. Like that's the so
Those
when
are
there's
big ones.
yes, yeah, usually all the little things lead to something big down there. And
Yeah.
so when you're trying to figure out a win-win and you're struggling with it, it's like the you just want to like clarify what the actual minimal need is. Is it like what
Okay.
is it? And then you go, okay, this is actually what I do need. And then the other person, what this is when once you can really uncover that, then a win-win solution can be found. But when things are vague, then it's
Uh-huh.
like they're too big. It's like I need all this. It's like, do you really need all of that? How about if I just, do this part? And like, yeah, well, actually, that would work. Like, I don't mind doing that. That's no problem. That's not a problem. It's this stuff. But what I don't care
Yeah.
about. So it just really, you just gotta just keep like funneling, like shaving down what the true needs are. And it's the same thing
Okay.
for mediation. If you're mediating to people that are
Uh,
arguing, then your first goal is just to find out what one person really needs, and when the other person gets upset, just emergency empathy, have them calm
Uh-huh.
down. Go back when you can really uncover what is your actual, what do you truly need? Okay, okay, good. All right, now we've uncovered what the real needs are. Now let's look for solutions.
Okay. So what if those needs conflict? Like they're not sharing the same reality.
Well, you have to go into examples, but generally, well,
Yeah.
sometimes like in a relationship too, good communication means it's time to break up. Like maybe, there's some things that
Oh,
are,
yeah.
I want to have a baby. I don't ever want to have a baby. Well,
Yes.
then maybe we should just break up. But if you didn't talk, that could have been this vague assumption that they both had an erroneous assumption for years until it's time. And they're like, whoa, you don't want to have a baby? No, like that's a deal breaker. And now it's like 5 years passed.
Yes.
So sometimes communication does make you break up. And That's okay.
Yeah.
In the long run, that's what needed to happen.
It's true. I think people do sometimes, they carry that vagueness, or they think the person is going to change their mind, or
Yeah.
they can convince them. In fact, I was working recently with someone, and they said, well, what if my partner just says no? And I said, well, do you want to convince them? Like, because she was going into convincing kind of language. And I was like, do you want to do that? And she's like, actually, I don't. I don't want to do that. That doesn't make me feel good. So I said, okay. And then we worked with it a little bit longer. But it's like, yeah, when you have a need like that, that's just in direct conflict, sometimes that is the case.
Yeah.
Or you make some agreements about how the relationship is going to move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I would see that sometimes you have to admit, okay, our needs are in conflict here. If we want to stay together, then that's something I have to handle. I can't expect my partner to come to compromise with me.
Yeah. I don't ever want anybody to compromise. Like it doesn't feel good. It just feels bad. It doesn't feel it's
Yeah.
like he says in the book, it's like a lose-lose. He's like, no.
Yeah.
It's like going to in the book, I think I used the analogy of like the couple wants to go to a movie, the man wants to go, some action movie, and the woman wants a more sentimental movie, and like they can't figure out which one they want, so they just don't go. But like, okay, but what is so they can't figure out, they're trying to find which movie, and they both just have the opposite things in the movie. But what's the deeper thing? Why are they going to the movies? They're going to the movies to date each other, to have fun. It's not to go see a movie, it's to go out. So how about let's go ice skating? Oh, okay. Well, let's go, see a show. Let's go to a play, or let's go like take a hike in the woods. So let's find something else that, we can't see the movie together. That's fine. It's not about the movie. That's why you go deeper and find what the real
need is.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because you don't want to compromise. All right, let's go see a movie that we both won't hate, but don't really want to watch. That's horrible. Like, no, I don't want to go see, you know what I mean?
It totally is, right? That's like a nice nap for me. I'm paying for a nap.
Yeah.
Like I'll fall asleep.
Uncomfortable, a very uncomfortable nap.
Yeah. It's funny because I heard this concept of, well, I think I read about it years ago. And we're going way back. There's a psychologist named Dr. Harley, and he wrote all these books about marriage and affair recovery and he wrote a ton of books. And he said in his book, you don't compromise when you're trying to figure out what to do with your partner in terms of tasks, household tasks, how we handle things. You do not compromise. You keep going until you're both 100% happy with the solution. And that just like blows people's mind, because they think, oh, marriage is about compromise.
Yes.
We hear that all the time. I'm going to say partnership. Partnership is about compromise.
Yeah.
And to introduce the concept of, actually, it doesn't have to be. Yeah. What if it's about getting 100% happy with and the decisions?
The caveat too is, though, it doesn't mean so like, yeah, you don't need to compromise, but also you can't just stick to your one idea of something. Like, no, I'm not compromise doesn't mean no, I'm going to see an action movie and I'm going to no, but not compromise means you look for the solution that feels good until it feels good, but it doesn't mean stick to this one idea, like, be stubborn and be like, no, this is it has to be like this. No,
yes,
it's not going to help. But
that's true.
Yeah, you want to find the solution that feels good. That's what you do. So there is like some nuance to the like.
Agreed.
About compromise. That's oversimplifying a bit, and that's why we get confused. Like, oh, it's about compromise. It is, and it isn't.
It's true. I think that takes some time too. So it may not be solved in that one conversation. Mm-hmm. It's like, let's come back to this until we can figure out a solution that we're both happy with.
Yeah. Which really, and then the work you do on that, you go away and then find out, hey, what do I really need? What is like the deepest thing that I need? And that's the work you do on your own. When you come back, you have some more clues, and then it's easier to navigate whatever the issue is.
Yes. Yeah, true. Well, we are coming to the end of our time here, and it's been a pleasure to actually talk to you in person. I've listened to you for many years, love your voice, love your examples and how you work through the processes. So can you tell people how to find the podcast, how to find you if they want to work with you? Do you still offer privates or
Yeah.
you have your course? I saw that's still up and running.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a course. So I have a
Okay.
website, the art of NVC.com.
Okay.
And I have a podcast, The Art of NVC, where, pretty much where all podcasts are available. We got a
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel with a few things, but mostly it's the podcast. And then, yeah,
Okay.
on my website, you can sign up for private lessons. And I also do a once a month practice group for people who just want to
Oh,
brush up. And so, yeah, let's take people through
cool.
scenarios. Yeah. And that's, there's a link on my website, but I do that through Patreon, Art of
Okay.
NVC.
How many people are in that
Usually
typically?
maybe like four, like 2 to 4 people, sometimes
So
five,
it's a small
six. Yeah,
group.
it's a small group. Mhm.
Okay. So someone could show up and expect to get some practice in
Yeah,
and
absolutely. You'll work through. Usually, it's like work through one 10 to 15 minute scenario, and then you'll be a partner with somebody else. So someone else
uh-huh.
will be like doing NVC, and the partner won't be. And I'll give you a scenario. I'll be like, I'll like send a message like, okay, this is what's happening on the surface, but this is why you're acting like that. And
Uh-huh.
then the other person will have to use NVC to get through it. And it's really fascinating how real these little scenarios will make your emotional body feel. You're like, it's
Oh
like you're on the
yeah.
spot. It can be intense, not like crazy intense, but like it is great practice.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, if you want to get good at NBC, anybody, um, you need to understand the concepts and then work these scenarios, and then you have a good
Yes.
chance of being able to use it in real life to a good effect. Yeah.
I think that's a really excellent point because often when someone jumps right into it and they're new to it and
Yeah.
then disaster happens,
Yeah.
they're like, it didn't go anyway. Like I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
And then they give it up
Yeah.
versus, no, let's get some practice in,
Yes.
particularly with an expert like you,
Yeah.
and go through the scenarios and yeah, let's see what could happen here. And then you feel, I think for me, I would feel calmer about that headed into a conversation that I know is difficult
Yeah.
if I
Because
practice them.
when you first do NVC and the other person's triggered, you're probably going to get it wrong, and it's probably going to actually be like a little worse, like than if you had it.
Yeah,
It's just the truth, unless you are
right.
practiced, because you're gonna like subtly imply they're bad and wrong, and you won't even know it, and you think you're not, but you will, because it's hard not to.
Hmm.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or for me, sometimes I freeze.
Hmm.
Like, what's the next step? What am I
Yeah.
supposed
Yeah.
to do?
I know. Yeah, it's like a deer
You
in
know,
headlights.
like, let me just sit here. It's like, what's going on over there? Nothing, nothing. Like, I'm listening to you, I
Yeah.
promise.
You gotta do those
You
filler
know?
words like, okay.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right. Well,
practicing not
Thank you for
interrupting. How's
sharing
that?
that.
Yes.
In the mind, you're like, what is
Thank
the next
you.
step?
Exactly. Exactly. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
And
This is fun. I enjoyed it very much. And say
yes,
hi to your
me
daughter. I'm glad
too.
this she's been enjoying
I
the
will.
podcast
I
too.
will. I wish she was here and could have popped in and said hello to you, but she's off at her boyfriend's house living her life.
Nice.
So, yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you truly enjoyed today's episode. Remember that you can get free hypnosis downloads over at my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. I work all over the world doing hypnosis. So if you're interested in working with me, please schedule a free consultation over at my website, and we'll see what your goals are and if I can be of service to you in helping you reach them. Finally, if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast or tell a friend. That way, more and more people learn about the power of hypnosis. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. Peace. This podcast is not mental health treatment, nor should it replace mental health treatment. If you need therapy or hypnotherapy, please seek treatment from a trained professional.